They don't tell you this. But sometimes the biggest sign you're about to be promoted isn't a new opportunity, it's someone leaving. Not because you did something wrong, not because the relationship failed, but because God knows exactly who can and cannot survive the next season of your life, and He removes people before you ever see what's coming. If someone recently walked away and it's left you confused, hurt, or blaming yourself, this is for you. Number 1. God removes the comfortable to prepare you for the uncomfortable. Some people are assigned to your rest, not your rise. They're perfect for the season of waiting, but they weren't built for the season of walking. When promotion is coming, God often removes the very people who made stagnation feel peaceful, because comfort and growth rarely survive in the same room. Think of Abram again in Genesis 12, told to leave his country, his people, his father's household, before God ever showed him the destination. The instruction to leave came before the blessing was revealed. Removal isn't always rejection. Sometimes it's the very first step of promotion, arriving before you understand what it's clearing space for. Number 2. Some people can only handle you at your current level. They loved the version of you that needed them. They celebrated the version of you that stayed small. But growth changes the dynamic, and not everyone can adjust. This isn't their fault, and it isn't yours either. It's simply misalignment revealing itself right on time. Naomi and Ruth show us the other side of this. Not everyone who starts the journey with you is meant to finish it. Orpah turned back in Ruth 1, and no one condemned her for it. But Ruth's willingness to keep moving forward positioned her for a future Orpah never stepped into. When someone can't go where you're going, God doesn't force them to stay. He simply lets the road reveal it. Number 3. Some relationships were only for a season of your development, not your destiny. Some people were sent to teach you something specific, a lesson, a warning, a skill. And once that assignment is complete, their part is finished. Holding on to them past their purpose doesn't preserve the relationship. It delays your next one. Paul and Barnabas had a sharp disagreement in Acts 15 over John Mark. So sharp that they parted ways entirely. It looked like failure, but that separation created 2 ministry teams instead of 1, multiplying the reach of the gospel rather than limiting it. What looked like the end of a partnership was actually the multiplication of purpose. Not every closed door is loss. Some are expansion in disguise. Number 4. God removes people who would have influenced you toward the wrong decision. Before a major promotion, timing matters more than most people realize, and the wrong voice at the wrong moment can talk you out of exactly what God is trying to give you. Sometimes, the removal isn't about that person's character at all. It's about protecting your obedience from being second-guessed. Look at Numbers 22, where God stopped Balaam from cursing Israel, not because Balaam had no gift, but because his influence in that moment would have disrupted God's plan. God will remove access, remove opinions, remove influence, when He knows a word spoken over your decision could weaken what He's building. Silence around you sometimes isn't punishment. Number 5. God removes people so you'll finally hear Him clearly. Sometimes the noise isn't loud voices. It's familiar ones. Advice repeated so often, it starts to feel like truth, even when it isn't leading you anywhere. And until certain people are removed, you keep tuning into their frequency instead of God's. Elijah needed total isolation before he heard the still small voice in 1 Kings 19. Not in the wind, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, but in the silence after everyone and everything else had been stripped away. Promotion often requires a level of clarity that crowded relationships can't give you. Sometimes God empties the room, not to leave you alone, but so you can finally hear the one voice that matters. So if someone left recently, and you've been replaying it, wondering what you did wrong, wondering if you should have fought harder to keep them, consider this instead. What if their leaving wasn't the tragedy you thought it was? What if it was the clearing of space for something you couldn't carry both at once? Promotion doesn't usually look like promotion at first. It looks like empty chairs, quiet phones, relationships that used to feel permanent suddenly feeling temporary. And it's disorienting, because we measure blessing by what's added, not by what's removed. But God has never needed your permission to protect your future. He removes what can't come with you before He reveals where you're going. That's not cruelty. That's precision. He knows the next level requires a different capacity, a different circle, a different level of hearing Him, and He starts preparing you for that long before you understand why things are shifting. So, don't chase what left. Don't beg someone to stay in a season they were never meant to survive. Grieve it if you need to, but don't resist it. Because sometimes the very thing that felt like loss was actually God clearing your table before serving you something bigger. Stay open, stay obedient, and trust that every empty seat is being prepared for someone or something that fits exactly where you're going next. Drop "I understand now" in the comments if you've experienced this kind of removal. And subscribe, because the next message reveals what happens the moment you stop looking back at who left and start walking into what's ahead.